Pluckers and Pickers unite. We have the powerful Joey Fulkerson on the show today. Welcome to Six String Sit Down. We're at Maffett Manor. Let's get started. Appreciate you coming out, man, being with us here today.
Well, thanks for having me.
How old were you when you first started playing?
Well, I started to play the harmonica when I was in the second grade. And then, I played harmonica throughout, elementary school, middle school. And I broke my foot on July 4th, 1976. It was the bicentennial celebration. And I was skateboarding, and I fell off the skateboard and broke my foot. So the rest of the summer I was in a cast, and my oldest brother Steve, he had played guitar, and he had left the guitar at the house, so I really couldn't get around too much. So I started grabbing the guitar and sitting out on the front porch, and he, it showed me, Wipe Out and a couple Smoke on the Water, of course, all that stuff, all the classic beginner stuff, and I started playing from there, and just ruined my whole life.
Do you do you remember your first guitar, man? What it was that you were jamming on?
Yeah, I still have it, actually. It's this, it was a Teisco guitar, and it's like a hollow body. Yeah. Like a red hollow body. I still have it.
Nice.
And
you ever gig with it every once in a while, or is it?
It's kind of, it's not really giggable.
Yeah, it's pretty far going.
It's just, for what I do, it's not, it'd be a one song specialty thing,
Right.
Just to try and use it, just to try and get it to stay in tune. And then the first good guitar I had was a Fender Mustang.
Nice.
I worked in the Appenzeller's potato field for a summer and saved up my money and bought it off a guy that lived in the neighborhood, and been going ever since.
Killer, man. Worth them potatoes. Worth all that potato pulling. So who was your guitar hero growing up?
Oh, I had a bunch of them. Hendrix, of course. David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. Santana.
Yeah.
It's a long list. I mean, really.
It's hard to pick from that era, too, because you got so many legends.
There was, like Robin Trower and Pat Travers. I loved all that stuff. And of course, all the greats, Led Zeppelin. And, I wasn't much of a Kiss fan till I saw them live, Yeah. Got a better appreciation for what they were doing. And then I loved all the Southern rock stuff too. I loved, Molly Hatchet and Skinner and the Outlaws and, that Allman Brothers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of influence on those. Jeff Beck too.
Right, yeah.
A lot of those guys.
He's a big one.
Then Stevie Ray Vaughan came out.
Yeah.
And just blew everyone's mind.
Changed the game again. He brought it back full circle. So, in your formative years, and by the way, it just made me remember too, Pat Travers live Go For What You Know. Still to this day, man.
Yeah, it's a great album.
Fire album, man. That album is so good, man.
So much good stuff on there.
So in your formative years, when you were learning your craft and all that, what did you spend the majority of your time doing that you can remember kind of really helped you, start to get some progress?
Well, it wasn't long after I started playing that, I ended up being in a band. So to be in a band, you had to have 40 songs. You had to have it together. Either I was singing in a lot of it, or we had a singer, and I would do half the night singing. So basically, it was learning off of records at the time,
Right.
Which at that time it was vinyl.
Yeah.
I remember I'd just obsessively put the needle back and just to get the part, And I remember my mom knocking on the door, please learn another song.
You're right.
Learn something new, please. But that's how I got it. I absorbed it that way. I would listen to it a dozen times before I even tried to play it, and then really just sit and try and figure it out and get all the chord changes, get the solos close as we could,
Right.
And then, started, after a certain point, you started developing a little technique, and then I started working on just finger exercises and, just trying to do all the calisthenic stuff.
Yeah, right. Just try to get the mechanics there.
Right, get it a little bit faster, a little bit cleaner. Then, like, Van Halen came out, and then Randy Rhoads and all those guys, and it was like,
all the neoclassical shred movement.
yeah, and it's like, man, I can never play that fast. So I started kind of going backwards at that point, finding the guys that played not super fast, but with a lot of soul. Then you find, David Gilmour comes to mind. Santana comes to mind. They had these flurries of fastness, but the majority of their style is these long whole notes, just bent the right way with the beautiful sound and the right vibrato and all that.
Yeah, great
that
phrasing.
Kind of took over.
Killer phrasing, man.
When I realized I couldn't play fast, I realized I better play soulful.
Hey, man, that's just as good in my opinion.
Yeah.
So you eventually, you get the gig for Chubby Checker, man. How old were you then, and what was that experience like?
Well, let me tell you, I was older. I'd been around a while. I got that job in 2001. So I don't know. I'm not good at the math, but I'm 56.
I went to public school, so
I'm
don't
56 now. But I mean, I was in my 40s, I think, pretty sure. But it was pretty cool. I mean, for one thing, I auditioned for the job in like November of the year before, 2000, and didn't get the job at first.
Right.
He hired this other guy that day, and then that guy lasted a month, and then he hired some other guy, and that guy lasted a month and a half or whatever. But it was like in the beginning of like January of 2001, I get a phone call in the middle of the night. Hey, you need to be at the airport tomorrow. Be down in Florida tomorrow afternoon. And 6 years later, I was still there.
Wow, man, that's a sweet gig.
So what I knew going into that job was that he wasn't going to make me famous or anything like that, and I never showed him any of my music or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
What I did was I showed up, and I was the guitar player he wanted me to be.
That's important.
My clothes were pressed clean, my guitars were strung and in tune, and I played the songs the way he wanted them. And that's how I lasted so long.
That's ridiculously good advice, though. People often overlook the basics like that. Have the gear, be in tune, know the tunes,
and play for the gig. I mean, it wasn't my gig. It wasn't ever going to showcase me or my blues style stuff that I did or anything like that. But it was a fun gig, and the cool thing about it was I love the travel part of it. People go, "Don't you get tired of traveling?" But man, I went to all these places that I never got able to go to without that. We went to Australia, I went to Ireland, went to Mexico, went all through Canada, Alaska, Hawaii, played just about every state in the 50 states.
Wow.
And all through Canada and all that. We'd be flying somewhere or driving somewhere, and you're like, oh, there's the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
Saw it on TV a million times, and here it is, And then another cool thing about that gig was we did so many shows where there was multiple acts on the bill. So I got to meet Bo Diddley, and I got to meet Chuck Berry and all these great musicians of that era, because they always did these package shows. And I met a bunch of sports stars, boxers, football stars. Everybody showed up to these gigs,
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it was pretty cool. That was a cool thing.
Was that as far as traveling? Was that like what was the whole gear thing like? Did you have to rely on like a random backline overseas?
Yeah, pretty much. We had what they call a rider there that's got sent out way in advance of any show. It had all our stage needs and any kind of accommodations and food and all that stuff on it.
Right. No brown M&Ms. No brown M&Ms.
It wasn't like that. No, it was a lot more practical than that.
Yeah, right.
But everywhere you go, you end up with a rented amp, pretty much.
Yeah.
And if we traveled by bus, I had an amp that we had in a road case that stayed in the bottom of the bus.
Right.
So occasionally I got to use my own amp, but typically it was a Marshall half stack, 100 or 50 watt half stack, or a 50 watt PV or a Fender Tweed kind of 410 amp, one of those things.
So nice clean tune.
Yeah, usually, and then I would bring a little pedal board with me. And
okay.
I brought my comfort zone.
Yeah, yep. That's
I had a little tuner and an overdrive and a delay, and no matter what I plugged into, at least I had my basic needs.
Yeah, your basic tone.
So.
Well, so going back a little bit, you eventually became a teacher. How did that affect your playing at all? Did it have any kind of?
Yeah, having to teach people to play the guitar is interesting because you have to stay ahead of them. You know what I mean? And you have to be able to quickly and logically explain what you're doing, what you're trying to show them in a clear, concise manner.
Right.
So that really pulled my act together quite a bit. I had a couple students that went beyond me fairly quickly, my abilities. Sean Cusani, you know him? Sean Q, they call him. He was like, I want to learn to play Dixie Dregs, and I would listen to Dixie Dregs and be like, Steve Morse, I said, I can't help you, but I know a guy who can. So I turned him on to a guy I knew that was more jazz oriented, and then he turned him on to his teacher. So I at least knew not to hinder the guy and hold him back. And I hooked him up with the right guys, and he's a stellar player now. He just kills it.
That's phenomenal, man. That's
get
great.
him to come in down.
Yeah, well, yeah. I would love that. So I guess to continue on that, any advice you give on an aspiring guitarist working hard to get better?
Well, the great thing about learning to play now is there's never been a time where you had access to more information than there is right now. There's, just in the music publications, books, magazines, all that stuff that's out there, the regular published stuff. I mean, it's incredible. You pick up Guitar World magazine, there's 5 songs in there, all completely transcribed with the tablature and everything. If you can't learn it,
you don't want it bad enough.
Yeah, you're an idiot. You know what I mean? And then you go on the internet, and anything you can think of, like any style, any player that you could ever think of, they're on there. There's a guy has caught their thing, and you can watch their hands, and they've got it, tablature, and the lyrics are out there, and it's a pretty good time to be able to learn. You know what I mean? But the thing is there's no magic pill to take.
No, there's not.
You still have to pick up the guitar. You have to tune it, because if you try and play without it being in tune, it sounds like total crap.
Yeah.
And then you have to put the time in. You got to figure out to play the notes. You got to build your calluses up. You have to build your sense of timing up. You have to use the feel and all that stuff. So it's just like any other time in history, but the information is overload. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
If it's a good time to learn, if you're really wanting to learn, it's a great time to be learning to play.
Something you mentioned earlier that like I keep coming back to, that this, like, the newer YouTube generation's kind of missing, is the whole picking stuff up by ear. Because you go to a jam, and you better know the number system, and you better be able to figure it out by ear, because the YouTube's not there. You can't be like, hold on guys, let me go search this real quick.
My iPad, like, be like,
yeah,
like,
so that's
fling
something.
that thing into the bleachers.
Yeah, they'd be like, sit down, son.
Yeah. Next. Yeah.
So, well, I asked.
Yeah, and that's the kind of a thing too. Like, if you're going to go out and play with other people, and in a jam situation specifically, you have to be able to communicate fairly quickly to 4 or 5, 6 guys that are there. What key is it in? What kind of feel is it? Is it major or minor? Are you picking up the lead part in the beginning? Or, you know what I mean? All these, there's a little bit of intricacies or whatever to it, but you got to be able to quickly say, hey, this is a box shuffle in key of A. Count it off, 1, 2, 3, and like, if the guys are on top of it,
right,
you hit it and they go,
And if he's not on top of it, you got to just roll with it anyway.
Yeah,
Don't train wreck.
Yeah, it's like some days are longer than others.
Yeah. Well, I asked all the blues guys I have on here, like I asked Jake, some other guys, what does the blues mean to you? Because I feel it's real personal, and it means something different to kind of everyone that's involved in it.
I don't know. I mean, well, I guess what I get out of it more of anything is there's more of a feel to it and a soul to it than there is a technical side of it. There are technical blues players, but the ones who made the mark are just seat of the pants, by the balls players. They just play from the heart, and really that's the hardest thing to learn. You know what I mean?
Play from the heart and vibrato. That's what Eric Clapton says. Well, man, I'm going to go ahead and close it with a final question. I ask everybody this. Who's on your Mount Rushmore of guitar? I know it's tough to pick 4. You feel like you're offending the whole all your favorites.
Yeah,
but
I
it's
mean,
if you had to pick 4, you know.
They definitely need to expand it a little bit. But
that's right. The first episode, I thought there was like 6 people on Mount Rushmore, so I messed that up.
And, you know, over time, my tastes have changed, you know what I mean? So I would say, if I had to pick 4, I would say Stevie Ray Vaughan, Chet Atkins,
that's a great one,
Santana, and I don't know, David Gilmour probably. You know what I mean?
Solid list.
I mean, those guys all play. They dig in. They they could play one note, just curl your hair, or do the craziest full out blown solo. And then you go to Chet Atkins, and it's like the guy's an alien from another planet. You know what I mean?
Doing like 6 things at once.
Yeah, and then I have a cool. I have the videotape guy gave me. One of my students gave me, and Chet's playing this thing, and it's like super crazy, complicated, and he looks, and the look on his face is just like he's thinking about, oh, I gotta balance my checkbook when I get home. It's like, you know what I mean? He was in another place completely, and he was just playing all this crazy stuff, and it's if you want to aspire to be better, you got to listen to those guys and grab a little bit of each for yourself. You know what I mean? Take it and make it your own.
We should, Joey. I appreciate you coming on, man. It was an honor, man.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.